Have you ever watched the woman you love choose another man while you're still standing right there? That morning, Chicago was drowning in rain, but even that storm wasn't as heavy as the truth hitting me in the chest. I packed my things slowly, carefully, the way a man moves when he's trying not to collapse inside his own home. Lauren stood in the doorway, eyes red, voice shaking, still pretending this wasn't betrayal. She truly believed she was upgrading her life. I looked at her and said, "I'm not going to fight for a spot in my own life." Then I walked out, quietly. No yelling, no begging, just a man leaving with whatever dignity he had left. Years later, when she saw the man I became, the man she threw away, that's when regret finally found her. And if you've ever lived through something like this, stay with me, hit subscribe, and follow the story to learn exactly why she regretted her choice. It didn't start with betrayal. It started in a lecture hall. Back at UIUC, I was the quiet guy in the middle row, head down, drawing buildings instead of taking notes. I wasn't chasing attention. I was chasing a future that didn't fall apart. Then one day I hear this voice next to me. "Do you always draw during lectures, or are you secretly redesigning the whole place?" I look up and there she is, Lauren. Too much energy for that early in the morning, eyes bright, acting like we've known each other for years. She doesn't ask if the seat's taken. She just drops her bag, slides in, and claims it. I mumble something awkward. She laughs like I'm actually funny. That laugh hits me harder than I'd ever admit. Up until then, my life was simple. Class, work, sleep, repeat. No drama, no chaos. Safe. That was the first day she chose a seat next to me. Back then, I thought she was just choosing a chair. I didn't know she was choosing a place in my life. And that one day, she'd choose to leave it. After that day, it was like the universe quietly decided, you two go together now. One comment in a lecture turned into shared notes. Shared notes turned into study sessions. Study sessions turned into late nights at some cheap coffee shop off campus. I'd be hunched over my designs, trying to make lines and angles behave. Lauren would be across from me, talking about big cities, big clients, big money. She wanted a life that didn't feel small. I just wanted a life that didn't fall apart like so many marriages I'd seen around me. We traded family stories, mine, boring in the best way. No big drama, just people who stayed. Hers, split holidays, split homes, split loyalties. One night, after a rough call with her mom, she leaned into me, eyes glassy, voice small. "You know what you are, Miles? You're the steady one." For a man, that hits deep. Being steady means someone believes you won't run. A week later, head on my shoulder, she whispered, "You're my safe place." Back then, love was cheap coffee, late nights, and big dreams on a small budget. And if life were fair, that should have been the whole story. Before Chicago, before the money, before the day steady started sounding like not enough to her. We left campus thinking we had it all figured out. Degrees in our hands, boxes in the trunk, that stupid young confidence that makes you believe love can handle anything. Lauren wanted a big city, big clients, big chances. New York felt too loud, LA too far. "Chicago sounds right," she said. "Big enough to matter, close enough to home." Me? I just wanted somewhere we could keep a roof over our heads and not drown in debt. Somewhere I could work, come home tired, and still have her there waiting. We found this little place in Logan Square. Old floors, thin walls, windows that actually let the sun in when it wasn't snowing sideways. No elevator, no granite countertops, just 4 walls, a leaky sink, and a rent we could almost afford. We carried the last box in, dropped it on the floor, and just stood there in the empty living room. No furniture, no TV, just our echo and our breathing. She wrapped her arms around my neck and whispered, "We'll build this from the ground up." And I believed her. I thought this apartment would make us. I didn't know the city we chose would slowly pull us in different directions. For a while, it was good. Better than good, honestly. I'd wake up before Lauren, catch the train, spend my day at the architecture firm trying to prove I deserved to be there. Junior guy, long hours, small paycheck. But it was honest work. I liked that. She landed a spot at a marketing agency downtown. New clothes, new people, that buzz in her voice when she talked about campaigns and clients. She'd come home late sometimes, kick her heels off in the hallway, and flop onto our old couch like she'd just survived a war. Nights were pasta we could barely afford, cheap sauce dressed up with too much garlic, a movie on a tiny TV that sometimes cut the sound for no reason. We'd laugh, complain, plan trips we couldn't take yet. I'd look around that cramped place and feel proud. I didn't need the world. I just needed that woman and that tiny apartment. We called it a simple life. Back then, that sounded like a compliment. I didn't know there'd come a day when she'd roll that same word around in her mouth and spit it out like an insult. That's when things started to shift. At first, it was small. Lauren would come home and say, "We had this launch downtown tonight," or, "My boss brought me to this networking thing in the Loop." No big deal. Work stuff. I was proud of her. Really was. Then the invites kept coming. Product launches, rooftop parties, private events where everybody had a title, a card, and an agenda. She'd talk about people who were important, connected, big in the city, names I didn't know, circles I'd never touch. I'd scroll her Instagram on my lunch break. Our goofy pictures on the couch started disappearing under new ones. Cocktails held up against the skyline, dresses I'd never seen before, soft lighting, expensive smiles. She looked like she belonged in that world. And me? I was just the guy paying rent on the place she slept in. One night I was sitting alone in our dim apartment, dinner for one on the coffee table, when her story popped up. Rooftop, city lights, music, her laughing with a crowd that looked like an ad for a lifestyle I couldn't afford. Her world started to glow. Ours started to dim. The first real cut didn't come from that rooftop, though. It came a few nights later, over a simple dinner, at our own table. A few days after that rooftop story, we actually managed to eat dinner together. Nothing fancy, just pasta again, plates chipped from too many moves. I asked about her day. That was my mistake, I guess. She lit up talking about this client who drove some car worth more than our yearly income, who flies to Europe like other people go to Target. When she finally paused, I told her about a small project I'd been put on at the firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a step up for me. While I was talking, I watched her eyes drift, to her phone, to the window, anywhere but my face. She set her fork down and asked, almost casually, "Don't you ever want more, Miles?" I knew what she meant. More money, more status, more shine. I took a breath and said, "Yeah, I want more. A home, peace, and you in my corner. That's my more." She gave this little half smile that didn't reach her eyes, the kind you give a kid who doesn't get the joke. That night, lying in the dark next to her, I realized something that hurt more than I expected. We were using the same word, more, but we were talking about completely different lives. Lauren's sister lived up on the North Shore, in one of those houses you only ever see in magazines or real estate ads you scroll past for fun. Glass everywhere, big open kitchen, white counters that somehow never got dirty. You could stand in their living room and see Lake Michigan stretching out like it belonged to them. The kind of place where nothing creaks, nothing leaks, nothing is good enough for now. Her brother-in-law spent most of dinner talking about deals, real estate, investments, some development near the lake, Europe trips, ski trips, tax strategies, a whole language that sounded familiar from TV, but not from my life. I kept up small talk, asked dumb questions, tried not to look like the broke in-law from the city. Lauren got quieter as the night went on. She laughed in the right spots, but her eyes kept drifting, to the view, the fixtures, the life. At one point she stood by the window, fingers tight around a wine glass, staring out at the water. Then she glanced back at me. She didn't say a word, but that look compared our entire life to that house. On the drive home, she finally said out loud what that look had already told me. It was quiet for a long time on the way back. Streetlights slid across her face while she stared out the passenger window, still holding on to whatever she'd felt in that house. I kept my eyes on the road, both hands on the wheel, trying to pretend nothing had shifted. Halfway back to the city, she sighed and said, almost to herself, "Feels like everyone's getting ahead and we're just surviving. Just surviving. Like the life we were building was some kind of bare minimum." I swallowed it down and said, "We have jobs, a home, each other. That's more than surviving, Lauren." She didn't argue. She just turned her face back to the glass, watched the dark roll by, and went silent in that way that tells you you've already lost the debate. In that moment, it hit me. My love, my effort, the rent I paid, the late nights, the plans, none of it could compete with the picture she now had in her head. You can't convince someone they're not settling once they've already decided they are. I wish that car ride was the low point. Turns out, it was just the start of me slowly becoming not enough in my own home. A few weeks after that drive home, Lauren got promoted. I was genuinely happy for her. I left work early, grabbed a halfway decent bottle of wine, cooked something nicer than our usual whatever's on sale pasta. I lit a couple cheap candles, set the table like it actually mattered. Right before she was supposed to come home, my phone buzzed. Team's going out to celebrate. Don't wait up. Message and a photo. Her in a new dress I'd never seen. City lights behind her. Makeup perfect. Smile turned all the way up. And next to her, a guy I'd never seen before, tall, sharp suit, hand resting just close enough to be noticed. Logan Pierce. I didn't know his name yet, but my gut did. I sat there in our dim apartment while the food went cold and the candles burned down to nothing. I zoomed in on that photo, stopped on his face, on how close he was standing to her, on how natural it looked. That was the first time I saw the man she'd eventually choose. I just didn't know yet how far she'd have to walk away from me to get to him. After that night, it felt like we were living in two different realities that barely touched. My days were pretty simple. Office, blueprints, site meetings, coffee that tasted like burnt hope, jokes with the guys, long hours, train home, key in the same old door. Her days, from what I could piece together, client lunches, rooftop mixers, industry nights, soft lighting, loud music. And more often, when she told stories, his name slipped in. Logan said, Logan knows this investor. Logan thinks this brand is going to blow up. I started checking her Instagram stories the way some people check the weather, to see if I was walking into sunshine or a storm. Most nights it was just her in that world. Drinks, views, people dressed like their whole personality was status. If I showed any concern, she'd wave it off. It's just work, Miles. Everyone does it. Maybe everyone does, but not everyone leaves their partner completely out of their new world. One night, scrolling through her feed alone on our sagging couch, it hit me. In the life she was building now, the one with the lights and the noise and the important people, I wasn't in the picture at all. The night it finally blew up didn't look special on the surface. I got home on time for once, picked up her favorite takeout, set it out on plates like we were still the couple who sat down together. I even lit a candle we had left from some old anniversary. Stupid, maybe, but I was trying. 9 o'clock passed. 10. The food went cold. The wax ran low. Around 11:30, I heard her key in the door. She walked in smelling like a perfume I didn't recognize and a night I hadn't been invited to. I made dinner, I said, standing there like an idiot between the table and the door. She glanced at the dishes, then at me. Miles, I told you not to wait up. I know, I said. I just miss you. She dropped her bag a little too hard. You're making everything heavier. I'm exhausted. Heavier. Like wanting time with my own wife was some kind of burden. I stood there, feeling myself shrink into something I didn't recognize. A problem. A weight. A need. I was trying to hold us together. She heard it as neediness. That was the night I stopped saying everything I felt and started watching more closely instead. After that fight, things didn't get better. They just got quieter. Her phone used to live anywhere, on the couch, on the counter, in the bathroom while she showered. Now it was always with her, face down, never out of reach. One day I picked it up to move it so I could wipe the table. The screen lit up, Face ID required, new lock, new rules, notifications off, just a blank screen and a wall between us. Little things started adding up. She'd tilt her body away when she texted, flip the phone the second I walked into a room, jump when it buzzed late. I wasn't checking on purpose, but you can't unhear what's right in front of you. Passing by the bedroom one night, I caught pieces of a call through the half-closed door. Logan. Rooftop. After party. My chest tightened in that way men don't like to admit. Later, when she came out, I asked quietly, "Are you happy, Lauren?" She froze for half a second. Long enough. I don't know, she whispered. That answer hit harder than a straight no. Because when someone doesn't know if they're happy with you, they're already looking for the place they think they might be. After that, I don't know, I started trying to fix things the only way I knew how: time together. One night I came home, saw her at the kitchen table, laptop open, shoulders tight. I stood there for a second, then said, "What if we take a weekend? Just us. No phones, no work, no Logan, no one. Just you and me." She didn't even look up. "I can't. Things are complicated." Complicated. That word again. The word people use when they've already made decisions they don't want to say out loud. I walked closer, reached out, laid my hand gently over hers on the table. She flinched like I'd burned her. "Don't, Miles. Not now." Something in me cracked. We went back and forth, me asking simple questions, her dodging with tired excuses, until finally she snapped, louder than she meant to. "I'm tired of everything feeling small." That word hit harder than any slap would have. Small. Our home. Our life. Me. She didn't take it back. She didn't soften it. She just let it hang there. That was the moment I stopped asking how tired she was, and started wondering who she'd rather be big with. After that small comment, the air between us changed. A few days later, I came home earlier than usual. The apartment was quiet, lights low, but I heard her voice, soft, almost girlish, in a way I hadn't heard in months. She was out on the balcony, back to me, phone pressed to her ear, laughing quietly at something I couldn't hear, but I already knew who was on the other end. I stood there for a moment, just listening. Not to the words, the tone. That light, easy tone I used to think was only for me. When she finally turned around, she jumped a little, seeing me in the doorway. "Who was that?" I asked. She didn't miss a beat. "A client." Lauren has never been good at lying. Her eyes always give her away. That day, they couldn't hold mine for more than a second. I could have pushed. I could have called it out. Instead, I heard myself say, "Okay," and walked past her. Sometimes, silence isn't forgiveness. It's the start of goodbye. Because the second you start pretending to believe the person you love, you already know you're losing them. After the balcony lie, the next move was predictable. One night, after another half-argument that went nowhere, she sighed and said, "I just need space, Miles." Space. The magic word. The one people use when they're halfway out the door but don't want to look like the bad guy yet. So I backed off. I stopped asking where she was every night. Stopped texting. "You coming home soon?" Stopped trying to pull her back into a life she clearly wasn't excited about anymore. I told myself I was respecting her, giving her room to breathe, letting things calm down. But space didn't bring her closer. It just made it easier for her to drift. Her stories changed. Less of us, almost none of us. More footage of high-rise views, louder bars, later nights, and more of him. Logan's shoulder in the edge of the frame, Logan's hand holding a drink next to hers. Logan's name dropped in passing like he'd always been part of the picture. I gave her space, hoping I'd get my woman back. All I really did was clear a path for another man to walk in. And the night it finally hit me in the face came with a plate of cold pasta and an empty chair. Maybe I was being sentimental. Maybe I was just desperate. Either way, one Thursday I got off work early and decided to go back to something that used to be ours. I cooked the same cheap pasta we lived on in college. Too much garlic, not enough sauce, but it always made her smile back then. I set the table for two, forks, plates, candles, even put on the old playlist we used to fall asleep to in that first apartment. 9 o'clock. No Lauren. 9:30. At 10, my phone buzzed. "Running late. Don't wait up." I stared at the screen for a full minute. Then, like an idiot, I opened Instagram. There she was. Rooftop again. City behind her like a painting. Glass in her hand, head thrown back laughing. And next to her, Logan. Close. Too close. His body angled toward hers like he'd already claimed that space. I looked from my phone to the other side of the table. Full plate, empty chair, cold pasta, dead candle. In that moment, it hit me harder than any argument. I wasn't with the woman in those photos anymore. I was dating her memory. And memories don't come home, no matter how long you keep dinner warm. It happened on a Sunday, the kind of gray Chicago morning where the sky sits low and heavy. I was in the kitchen doing what I always did, grinding coffee, staring out the small window, pretending the routine meant things were still normal. Mug in my hand, same counter, same tile, same life I'd been holding on to with both fists. Lauren was by the living room window, arms folded, looking out at nothing. No phone in her hand for once, no makeup, just that distant look people get when they've already left in their head. I walked over, set my coffee down, and before I could say anything, she turned. "Miles, we need to talk." Those 4 words land like a sentence, not a conversation. I didn't argue, didn't crack a joke, didn't ask about what, because we both knew. I just pulled out a chair, sat down at our small table, and waited. You always know when a storm is coming. The air changes first. She sat across from me, eyes wet but determined, and took a breath. "I want more," she said. And just like that, the ground under our life opened up. "I want more," she repeated, voice shaking but stubborn. "More than this. More than what we have." I stared at her for a second, trying to decide if I'd misheard. "More than me?" I asked. She didn't answer that part. Instead, she went broad, talked about opportunities, doors opening, how people she worked with were going places, how she didn't want to wake up at 40 and feel like she'd settled. Settled. Like our entire life together was some bargain bin choice. I let her talk, let her circle around the real point until I couldn't take it anymore. "So just say it," I finally said. "This isn't about more in general. This is about him, isn't it?" Her eyes flickered. "About Logan." She flinched, just a tiny movement, but it told the whole truth. She opened her mouth. "It's not that simple, Miles. It is," I cut in quietly. "You want his world, his contacts, his shine. You want to know you didn't waste your life on a simple guy with a simple home." She looked down, tears hanging but not falling. She didn't have to answer my question. Her silence did it for her. Once another man's name is in the middle of your marriage, you can't pretend you're talking about more in general anymore. After I said his name out loud, something in her cracked. Lauren started crying, the kind of crying that's half guilt, half fear of losing her safety net. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said. "It just happened. I got confused." Confused. That word again. She looked at me like she was waiting for the show to start. "Yell at me. Tell me I'm wrong. Say something, Miles." She wanted the script. Rage, drama, begging, something that would make her feel like she was still worth fighting over. I just sat there, strangely calm. "You made your choice long before today," I said. "Long before this conversation." She shook her head, tears running. "It's not that simple." "It is for me," I answered, "because I'm not going to compete with another man for my own wife." I let that sit, then added very quietly, "I won't audition for my own relationship, Lauren. I don't beg to be chosen." Her face fell, because there was nothing to argue with. That was the day I chose my dignity over my desperation. I didn't know it yet, but the proof of how long I'd been an option was still waiting for me on our own couch. The funny thing is, the final confirmation didn't come in some big dramatic moment. It was a random weeknight. Lauren was in the shower, music playing, door closed. I was on the couch, half watching some game I didn't care about, half thinking about how the hell we'd gotten here. Her tablet was next to me. It lit up with a notification. I didn't go looking for anything. I didn't snoop through apps. I just saw it. "Logan Pierce. Last night was worth losing sleep for. When's round 2? My stomach dropped. I picked up the tablet. My hands were shaking, but not from rage, from confirmation. I opened the thread. Messages stacked on messages, jokes, compliments, plans, late-night check-ins. I scrolled. Last night, last week, the week before that. All those nights she'd been exhausted. All those work events. All that confusion. She hadn't just slipped. She'd been building a second life while I was still trying to save the first. It wasn't the words that broke me. It was the timestamp. She told me she was confused a few days ago. Those messages said she'd made her choice weeks before that, and just never had the courage to say it out loud. I didn't confront her right away. I waited until the noise in my head settled, until I could sit without shaking. Then I put the tablet on the kitchen table, screen dark, and called her in. She sat across from me like it was any other night. I didn't say a word. I just tapped the screen and let the thread with Logan light up between us. I watched the color drain from her face. "Miles, I was going to end it," she stammered. I cut her off, calm in a way that scared even me. "No, you don't get to soften this." She opened her mouth again, but I kept going. "You didn't just leave, Lauren. You made sure you had a soft place to land first." That's what broke me more than anything. Not that she chose another man, but that she used me as the bridge to get to him. I wasn't her partner at the end. I was her safety net. I wasn't angry. I was done. Sitting in that tiny Logan Square kitchen, I realized my role had already changed. I wasn't her husband in her mind anymore. I was just the last stop before her new life. Once you see yourself as the backup plan, it's hard to unsee it. The next morning, I pulled out my old duffel bag from the closet, the same one I'd used when we first moved to Chicago. This time, I wasn't unpacking a new life. I was folding one up. Shirts, jeans, a couple pairs of shoes, the basics. I took my time, not because I was unsure, but because I wanted every movement to be deliberate. Lauren stood in the doorway, eyes swollen, voice shaky. "Say something real, please." I zipped the bag, set it upright, and looked at her one last time. "I'm taking what's left of me," I said, "and leaving quietly." She swallowed hard. "Where will you go?" I shrugged. "Somewhere I'm not a backup plan." There it was, the only answer that mattered. I picked up the bag, grabbed my coat, and walked to the door. No yelling, no slammed cabinets, no broken dishes. A man only leaves once. When he really leaves, he doesn't slam the door. He closes it for good. Behind me was the life where I wasn't chosen. Ahead of me, I had no idea yet. All I knew was I wasn't staying where I'd been downgraded to option. I found a cheap room out in the suburbs. Short-term lease, one window, single bed, walls so bare they almost echoed. That first night, it was just me and the hum of the heater. No Lauren brushing her teeth in the bathroom, no second toothbrush, no extra pair of shoes by the door, just silence, and my own thoughts, louder than anything. My hand kept going to my phone. Pick it up. Put it down. What was I even hoping for? A sorry? A comeback? Another lie? Lying on that stiff mattress, staring at the ceiling, the real question finally landed. Was I not enough? It sat on my chest like a weight. I could have stayed there forever, letting that question eat me alive. But somewhere between one breath and the next, a different answer came up. Quiet, but solid. I was enough. I was just in the wrong story. That's when the tears finally came. Not loud, not dramatic, just a steady burn. I cried that night, first time in years, and the last time I would ever cry over her. Because once you accept you were enough, you stop begging the wrong person to see it. After that night, something in me shifted. I still hurt, don't get me wrong, but the begging part of me, the part that wanted to fix us, that guy was gone. I threw myself into work, not to run away, but to have somewhere real to put all that energy. I showed up earlier, stayed sharper, took on the projects nobody wanted. My buddy Daniel looked at me one afternoon and said, "You've stepped up, man. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." I signed up for a gym near the office. Nothing crazy, just moving weight instead of letting it sit on my chest all day. I started eating actual meals instead of beer and leftovers. Sleep came easier when my body was tired for the right reasons. Weekends, instead of sitting in that room scrolling Lauren's feed, I'd walk along the Chicago River with a podcast in my ears. Sometimes about business, sometimes just guys talking about life after divorce, betrayal, starting over. I wasn't divorced, but I felt spiritually there. One quiet Sunday, it hit me. I'd stopped stalking her life and started building mine. And for the first time in a long time, my future didn't have her name written all over it, and that felt less terrifying than I expected. I didn't see Lauren for a long time after I left, but in a city like Chicago, you still hear things. Through mutual friends, I found out she'd moved into some glass condo downtown with Logan. High floor, floor-to-ceiling windows. The kind of place where the view is half the rent. I didn't follow her, but every now and then someone would show me her posts. Same pattern every time. High views, champagne glasses, perfect outfits, fancy dinners where the plates looked like artwork instead of food. On the surface, she'd made it. Penthouse view, high status guy. The more she said she wanted. But her eyes were different. The smile was there, wide, practiced. But her eyes looked flat, tired, like someone who'd finally reached the life they chased and didn't know why it still felt empty. She got the penthouse view, the high-status guy, and a kind of silence I never gave her. And here's the strange part. I wasn't jealous anymore. Looking at those pictures, at that cold, polished life, all I could think was, I didn't lose. I dodged a bullet. More details about their life trickled in over time. Not because I asked. People just talk. A coworker who ran in those circles mentioned seeing them at events. Logan runs the room, he said, and he runs her too. I heard how he'd comment on what she wore. That dress is too loud. That color's not you. How he'd correct her in front of people when she shared an opinion that didn't match his. Always with a smile, always with a joke, but sharp enough to leave a mark. The late nights Lauren once spent out partying, now they were spent at home, waiting for him to come back from whatever meeting ran long. People said he was charming, successful, connected, the kind of guy who knew everyone's name and made sure everyone saw him. And I realized something simple and ugly. She traded a man who listened for a man who posed. I wasn't perfect. I missed things. I stayed quiet when I should have spoken up, but I never tried to make her smaller so I could look bigger. Not every upgrade is an improvement. Sometimes it's just a shinier cage. While she was busy chasing that shiny life, I got busy with mine. At the firm, they put me on a big project down by the Chicago River. Real money, real visibility, the kind of job I would have doubted myself on before all this. Now, I had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. To myself, not to her. I spent nights at my desk going over plans, learning new software, fixing problems before anyone else even saw them. No distraction, no checking her socials, no waiting for keys in the door. Just work. And the quiet discipline that comes when your heart has already been broken once and survived. One evening my boss stopped by my station, hand on my shoulder. "You've got leadership in you, Miles. Keep going." On the train home, that sentence replayed in my head. Heartbreak didn't break me. It built me. I leveled up quietly. No need to flex for anyone. No need to post it. No need to prove it to the woman who walked away. For the first time, my future felt like something I was building for me, not for someone else to approve of. Eventually, I moved out of that bare little room and into a small apartment that actually felt like mine. Nothing fancy. One bedroom, decent light, quiet building, no ghosts in the walls, no memories of waiting by the door. I bought a couch I liked. I picked the dishes myself. Hung art that made sense to me, not just stuff that looked good in photos. On weekends, I joined a hiking group just outside the city. Met people who didn't know me as Lauren's husband, just Miles. We talked about work, sports, messed up life choices, sore knees. It felt normal in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I started cooking meals I liked, not just her favorites. Spicy food she used to complain about. Late breakfasts on Sundays with no one rushing me. There were a couple of casual dates, nice women, good conversations. But I didn't force anything. For once, I wasn't trying to lock someone in so I wouldn't be alone. I was learning how not to be afraid of my own company. Peace felt strange at first, like a room too quiet. Then, slowly, peace started to feel like home. A few years slipped by. Not fast, not slow, just life. Work, bills, quiet weekends that didn't hurt anymore. One Tuesday, I opened my email and saw it. Invitation to speak at the annual Chicago Architecture Gala. Big ballroom downtown, black tie, sponsors, press. The kind of event I used to watch from the outside. I forwarded it to Daniel with a question mark. He called me 5 seconds later. "Look at you now, man," he laughed. "From drafting in the corner to keynote material." Later that week, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror in a suit that actually fit right. Tie straight, shoulders relaxed. There was no rush, no panic, no voice in my head wondering what Lauren would think. And that's when it hit me. I hadn't thought about her in weeks, maybe months. No late-night scrolling, no fake arguments in my head. No, what if she saw me now? That's how you really know you've moved on. Not when it stops hurting, but when they stop being the first person you imagine in the audience. The gala wasn't about proving anything to her. It was the night I'd find out who I'd finally become without her. The night of the gala, the place was buzzing. Soft music, clinking glasses, people in suits talking about projects, money, and skylines. At the entrance, the coordinator checked her list and smiled. "Miles Carter, right? You're one of our speakers. We're glad you're here." Not Lauren's husband. Not that quiet guy in the back. Just Miles Carter, the architect. I walked into that ballroom and realized something important. This was my world now, and I built it brick by brick while no one was watching. Colleagues shook my hand. Younger guys I'd mentored came up to say they were proud of me. Even a couple of old bosses nodded with that "you made it" look. I remember thinking, if the guy who left that Logan Square apartment in the rain could see this version of me, he wouldn't believe it. I wasn't looking for Lauren. I wasn't scanning the room for her face. I wasn't secretly hoping she'd see me winning. Life only brings certain people back when you finally don't need them as proof of anything. My identity wasn't tied to her anymore, and that quiet confidence was exactly what she was about to walk back into. I was in the middle of a conversation with an investor talking about riverfront zoning and timelines when I felt it. That feeling like someone just turned a spotlight on you. My words started to fade in my own ears. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I glanced over his shoulder toward the entrance, and there she was. Lauren, standing near the door, clutching a glass like she wasn't sure whether to drink it or drop it. Same face, same posture, but different somehow. Still beautiful, but the shine was gone. Softer around the edges. Tired in a way makeup can't cover. Her eyes locked on me and didn't move. For a second, the room went quiet. No music, no clinking glasses, just that stare. She took a small step forward, lips parting like the word hurt to say. "Miles." Not like you say someone's name in passing, like you're calling a ghost. In that moment, she looked at me like I was a life she'd dreamed about, and then thrown away. Our eyes met, and time really did slow down. I wasn't the man she left in that Logan Square apartment anymore. And from the look on her face, she knew it before either of us said a word. She didn't come straight up to me. She hovered at the edge of my circle, waiting until the conversation died down, then touched my arm lightly. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Please." There was no anger left in me, just a kind of detached curiosity. I nodded once. "Yeah, outside." We stepped out onto the terrace. Cold air, city lights, the river cutting through the dark like a vein of glass. For a second, it felt like we were back in our early 20s, standing on some balcony talking about the future. Except this time, we were the past. She turned to really look at me then. Suit, relaxed shoulders, no storm in my eyes. "You look happy," she said quietly. "Different." I held her gaze. No need to dress it up. "I am." That was it. 2 words. But they hit harder than any blame, any lecture, any "you did this to me" ever could. Because for the first time she was standing in front of a version of me that didn't orbit her. A man whose peace didn't depend on whether she stayed or left. And I could see it land. The realization that I had finally become everything she thought she wanted, after she'd already walked away. Out on that terrace, under the city lights, the mask finally slipped. Lauren's eyes filled up, and this time she didn't fight it. Her voice cracked. "I made a mistake, Miles." She didn't wait for me to respond. The words started tumbling out like they'd been sitting in her throat for years. She told me how Logan controlled everything. What she wore, what she said, who she could be around. How his affection always felt conditional. Good when she made him look good. Cold when she didn't. How she could be in a room full of people and still feel completely alone. "The grass wasn't greener," she whispered. "It was just fake turf." Her hand shook as she wiped her cheek. I traded a good man for a good time, and it didn't even last. There it was, the sentence I'd begged the universe to hear for so long. For years I imagined this moment would fix something in me, that hearing her admit it would somehow make all the pain worth it. But standing there, listening to her finally tell the truth, I didn't feel victory. I didn't feel revenge. I felt one thing: clarity. After the words finally ran out, there was just breathing and cold air. Lauren looked at me like a drowning person staring at a shoreline that's too far away. Is there any version of us still possible? She asked. Any way back? The wind picked up, cutting through the silence. I didn't answer right away, not because I was unsure, but because I wanted to respect the weight of what I was about to say. I thought about that younger version of me, the one who waited by doors, cooked cold dinners, scrolled her stories just to feel close to her. The man who would have taken her back in a heartbeat just to stop hurting. Then I thought about the man standing here now. Finally, I said, the man I am now can't go back to who he was. She frowned, confused. I went on. That version of me lived for your approval. This one lives for himself. Her face crumpled, not from anger, but from understanding. Sometimes the kindest thing you can say is no, without ever using the word. And in that moment, we both knew. Whatever we had been, it was never coming back. She was shaking now, mascara smudged, voice barely hanging on. Losing you is the deepest regret of my life, she said. A few years ago, that line would have broken me. I would have grabbed onto it like a lifeline, tried to turn it into a second chance. But standing there on that terrace, I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel revenge. I just nodded. I hear you, Lauren. I didn't reach for her, didn't take her hand. No hug, no last kiss, just acknowledgement. Two people finally telling the truth, a decade too late. I cared about you, I said. I always will, in some way, but we're done. That life is over. Her face crumpled, but I stayed steady. Because that's what nobody tells you. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it's just release. I wasn't erasing our history. I wasn't pretending it never mattered. I was just refusing to drag a dead story into the next chapter of my life. That night, I didn't get my old life back. I let it die with dignity and walked away with mine. When I walked back inside, the MC was already on stage. And now, please welcome architect Miles Carter. Applause rose up and wrapped around me as I made my way toward the front. People clapped, some stood, a few guys slapped my shoulder on the way by. They were cheering for my work, my name, my path, not for who I used to be with. Out on the terrace behind me, Lauren stayed where she was, alone with the wind and the city lights. She didn't just lose a man. She lost a sanctuary she never learned how to value. I used to be the place she could fall apart without being judged, the steady shoulder, the quiet room where she was enough without needing to impress anyone. She traded that for the kind of life where you're always on, always proving, never resting. Through the glass, I caught a faint reflection, her hugging her own arms for warmth, head bowed, framed by the city she chose over us. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. For the first time, I wasn't wondering if she'd come back. I was wondering why I ever thought losing myself for her was love. On stage that night, I wasn't thinking about her. I was talking about buildings. I walked them through the project, how we reinforced the foundation, how you can't stack glass and steel on top of weak footing and expect it to stand. If the base is cracked, I said into the mic, the whole thing fails, eventually. People nodded, like it was just about architecture. But in my head, I was somewhere else. Turns out, relationships are the same. A man really needs three things: a roof over his head, peace of mind, and someone in his corner. For a long time, I had 2 out of 3. I had a roof. I had someone standing next to me. Peace? I didn't even put it on the list back then. The truth is, I didn't lose when she chose another man. I started losing the moment I almost abandoned myself to keep her. That was my part in the damage. Not what she did. That's on her. What I let happen to me? That's on me. And owning that didn't break me. It finally set me free. After the gala, I stepped out of the hotel into the cool Chicago night. The river was calm, the city humming instead of screaming. For once, the quiet felt earned. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from someone I'd met a few weeks back. Smart, kind, easy to talk to. Drink sometime this week? I stared at the screen and felt something I didn't expect. Not panic, not pressure, just a calm yes sitting somewhere in my chest. I smiled. I didn't rush to answer. I didn't build a fantasy around it. I also didn't shut it down out of fear. I'm not waiting for the one to fix me. I fixed myself. Whoever walks into my life next isn't walking into a mess I'm hoping they'll clean up. They're meeting a whole man, not a broken one begging to be healed. I'm not hungry for someone to fill a void anymore. I'm ready, when it happens, for someone to share a life I actually like living. And this time, if she chooses another man, I'll know I never stopped choosing myself. She chose another man. I left quietly. Back then, I thought I'd lost everything. Standing in that rain with a duffel in my hand, it felt like my whole life had just been ripped out from under me. Now I know the truth. I walked away with the only thing that really matters: myself. She chased the highlight reel life, the views, the parties, the man everyone wanted to stand next to. I chose the quiet life, the work, the peace, the kind of home you build brick by brick when nobody's clapping for you. And here's what I learned, fellas. A man who knows his worth doesn't beg to be chosen. He chooses himself. He doesn't compete for his own spot. He doesn't audition for his own relationship. He doesn't abandon himself just to keep a seat at someone else's table. So let me ask you this. Have you ever loved someone so much you forgot yourself? If this story hit something in you, don't just scroll away. Drop your story in the comments, hit follow, subscribe, and let this be the moment you stop chasing the ones who left and start choosing you.